Darkness on Highway 42. The moon hung low and eerie in the sky, casting ghostly shadows on the quiet road. Melanie drove down Highway 42, her radio playing a soft tune, the hum of the engine lulling her into a calm state. Her old car, a 1985 Chevrolet, was a faithful companion, having traveled countless miles with her. She remembered her dad's words when she got the car. "Take care of her, Mel. She's got her quirks, but she'll never let you down." Those words seemed ironic now, as her dashboard lights began to flicker. "Come on, old girl. Not tonight," she whispered to the car. Suddenly the engine sputtered, the radio died, and all the lights, including her headlights, went out. Melanie's heart raced. She fumbled for her phone, but there was no signal. She coasted the car to the side of the road, the sounds of crickets filling the oppressive silence. Panic gripped her. She was in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by thick woods on both sides. The closest town was miles away. Remembering the toolbox her father insisted she always keep in the trunk, she grabbed a flashlight and cautiously stepped out of the car. The beam of the flashlight cut through the darkness, revealing rustling trees and an ominous silence. Opening the hood, Melanie tried to figure out the problem, though she wasn't mechanically inclined. Everything seemed in order. No smoke, no smell, just silence. As she pondered her next move, she heard a soft voice. "Need help?" She jumped, spinning around to face a tall, gaunt man. His clothes were old and tattered, and his eyes had a hollow look. Who are you?" she stammered. "Just a traveler. Saw your car. Thought you might need some help," he said, his voice dripping with an unsettling calmness. Melanie hesitated, but then thought, "What choice do I have? I don't know what happened," she said. "Everything just died." The stranger approached the car, looking it over with a knowing eye. After what felt like hours, he simply said, "It's her time. Some things, they just choose when to end." Melanie frowned. "That doesn't help me. I need to get home." The stranger looked deep into her eyes. "Some roads aren't meant for traveling, Melanie." She took a step back, suddenly realizing she hadn't introduced herself. "How do you know my name?" He chuckled softly. "Names have a way of traveling." Melanie felt the hair on the back of her neck stand on end. "Who are you?" she demanded. "A memory, a shadow, a warning," he replied cryptically. Melanie grabbed her phone, trying to dial 911, but still no signal. When she looked up, the man was gone. Suddenly, her car roared to life on its own. The radio blared, headlights flashed, and the engine purred. Shocked, Melanie rushed to the driver's seat and sped away. But as she drove, the woods seemed endless. The same landmarks kept passing by. An old rusted sign, a peculiarly shaped tree, a broken fence. Hours felt like minutes and minutes felt like seconds. The road just kept looping. Her fuel gauge, mysteriously, never dipped below half. Her radio, however, played the same haunting song on repeat, a song she had never heard before. Eventually, Melanie stopped, tears streaming down her face. "What do you want from me?" she yelled into the darkness. The gaunt stranger appeared beside her window. "You can never leave Highway 42, Melanie. You're trapped in its loop, just like me, just like all the others." Melanie's eyes widened in horror. "Others?" The man pointed towards the woods. Dozens of cars from different eras were hidden among the trees, their owners' ghostly figures wandering aimlessly. "I tried to warn you," he whispered. "Now you're one of us." Suddenly, everything went black. The next morning, a local police officer found Melanie's Chevrolet parked on the side of Highway 42. The car was empty, but the radio played a soft, haunting tune. Another vehicle added to the legend of the cursed highway. Rumors spread about the haunted stretch of road. Some said they had seen ghostly figures wandering. Others claimed they had been helped by a gaunt stranger when their cars broke down. only to be released from the loop after showing gratitude. But one thing was certain. Those who traveled Highway 42 at night risked being trapped in its endless loop, forever joining the ranks of its ghostly inhabitants. The Secret of the Cornfield. Jake was driving home in his newly acquired classic Chevrolet, preferring the quieter routes. It was late in the evening and the road was almost deserted. As he drove, he passed a vast cornfield. The radio played an old rock song, but it abruptly stopped, replaced by static. Suddenly, amidst the static, a faint voice of a child could be heard. "Help me! Please help!" Jake looked around, but there was no one in sight. The voice seemed to come from within the cornfield. His heart racing, Jake pulled over to the side of the road. The cornfield swayed slightly under the moonlight with a gentle breeze. Jake tentatively made his way into the field. "Hello? Is anyone there?" he called out, but all he could hear was the whisper of the wind through the corn stalks. The voice seemed to come from an old abandoned house nestled within the cornfield. The house bore the marks of time, but there was something eerily inviting about it. As Jake approached the house, he could hear the voice more clearly now. "Please, I'm here." Upon entering, he found an old piano covered in dust, but with keys that shone like new. As he approached, the piano started playing by itself, producing a melancholic lullaby. As he explored further, Jake found an old photo album. Inside were pictures of a family that seemed to have lived in this house. In one photo, a young boy, with a sad expression identical to the voice he had heard, stared back. The caption read, "Little Tommy, 1952. Footsteps from the floor above caught Jake's attention. As he made his way up, he noticed a painting hanging in the corridor. It depicted children playing in a cornfield and a dark-eyed figure watching them. The eyes seemed to have a sinister glint. At the end of the corridor, a slightly open door revealed a room. Inside, in the middle, stood the same boy from the photo, little Tommy, holding an old toy train. "He keeps me here," said the boy with a mournful voice. "He wants to play, but I want to go home." Suddenly, Jake felt a cold breath on his neck. Turning around, he came face to face with the dark-eyed figure from the painting. "He's my playmate," said the figure in a deep, guttural voice. Grabbing Tommy's hand, Jake ran out of the house. They jumped into his car and sped away. But in the rear-view mirror, the glowing eyes of the dark figure watched them from the house's windows. Back at home, Jake asked Tommy about his story. "I disappeared in 1952. He lured me to the house with toys, and I never returned," Tommy explained. Jake decided to report the story to the police, but they didn't believe him. The next day when he woke up, Tommy was gone. All that was left was an old toy train on his bed. Years went by, but Jake never forgot that night. Every time he drove past that cornfield and the old house, he remembered Tommy. But one thing was certain. That night had forever changed Jake's life.